Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Our guest today, Ryan Anthony Owenand. What's up, brother?
Hey, pal. I know I go by Ryan Anthony because Owenhand's Dutch. We're not really Dutch, and it's kind of a cluster. So we just kind of go by the.
Yeah, the middle name. I mean, I see that. I know you as Owenand, Ryan Anthony. Yeah, I didn't know exactly where you wanted to go with that. What's the story there? You're a big mess. You're like me. I'm like,
I don't identify. I don't know who I am or what I am anymore.
Well, I would identify you as a branding weapon, a marketing genius maverick, if you will.
Oh my God.
But founder, outcomes, not ideas.
Yes, sir.
I love that. Why?
Thank you.
Because outcomes are the only real thing that's measured. Ideas are something that everything or everybody has, but outcomes are really the only things that the world rewards you for, whether you like it or not.
Ain't that the truth? So
you have a bit of an interesting story, and I we're reminiscing a little bit offline when we first met. This has got to be probably 12 years ago, and the first time that I met you was there was a company that was just getting off the ground. Mutual friends of ours were starting it, and that company has now grown exponentially across Canada and the US. They've been doing really, really well for themselves, but they put trust in a very small group of people to start looking at what that company was going to become. Right. So at this point, I remember sitting in a room with you, and it was about 4 other people plus the 2 initial founders of that company. And they didn't know how they were going to scale. They didn't know necessarily who they were going to target, who their market was. They didn't know what they were going to call themselves. So, we were throwing around different names on a whiteboard. Like, these were early stages of this company. And that was about 12 or so years ago. And at that point, I remember you had some pretty incredible feedback, and I was looking at this guy. I was like, man, this guy's not just a beautiful head of hair over here. He's actually got some talent behind that hair.
That's fine. All goop, no substance. That was with Igor back in the Dizzy when he was starting his own thing. So that was, that was a bit of the inroads from when I was still doing the beverage alcohol thing. But my passion and mind was always going towards the time what I referred to was like advertising, right? So, but I've always been I don't know. I've always loved that kind of stuff. So I remember meeting that. That's where we met years ago.
Let me ask you, because you mentioned the sort of the beverage world, the alcohol world, the sort of the club scene, if you will, and that was you were there for a number of years, and did that play a big part in shaping your love for you call it advertising, but I mean, you talk about liquor brands. I mean, there's a huge amount of them, and there's to get those names in front of people, there's a huge amount of marketing that's got to be done in order to stand out in front. Is that where you started? Why don't you give us a bit of a background of what that looked like and what that transition is into where you are now.
Sure. Well, yeah, at the time, I mean, my background was funny because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cop or I wanted to be a teacher.
You didn't want to
Okay.
be a musician. I see you slaying that guitar, man. Like,
Yeah. No, I'm working. Yeah, we're working on the Nickelback cover band. So once that takes off, then I won't be doing any more podcasts.
yeah,
I'll
my
just
guy, my guy.
Um, no, but all kidding aside, I was always into teaching and or a cop. And it's funny as you look back and how things why you can't really speak to why you want to do those things, but you just kind of want to do them. And then as I got older, I thought I don't know if I want to be a cop, you know, like and
That's
then.
it.
And
Yeah.
some teachers don't make that much money. I don't really want to do that. So, what I was brought in is growing up in a family of entrepreneurs. Um, I gravitated a lot to my uncle at the time, and my uncle was in beverage alcohol. So, um, being a young man, we look up to other men, and uh, yeah, I just kind of saw what he was doing. I go, well, that's kind of interesting, and then went the hand to kind of getting into that space. So I worked at the young age with Bacardi, and Molson and Corona and all these kind of brands. So I kind of got into that. But what I found fascinating about it really wasn't, and don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun doing it and consumed a lot. But I was always fascinated with like fast moving, I guess, consumer goods, things that, like you said, there's so many. How do you get them to stand out and what makes that meaningful difference? I was always, kind of fascinated with that. And my first touch into that world was the likes of beverage alcohol, right? So to answer your question a little bit and give context, that's kind of how I got started in that space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty rapid pace that you have to move at if you want to stay relevant in that world. Because there's
Oh
new
yeah.
cocktails, new mocktails that are popping up. I've seen, a huge amount of retail space, getting taken up by
Yeah, just
certain
dollars
vendors.
and cents, man. It's an expensive game. Like for people that are, in it. I had the luxury of being able to work with some of these brands and then go travel throughout North America and to Europe and, you know, um, and see all the beauty and the strategy and the minds and the people that went into making what seemed so simple. And the level of investment and competitiveness and all that kind of crazy stuff, man. It's like yeah, to win and then win at that scale. I was again for a creative minded fella that was young and single at the time. I was in heaven. So
Yeah, not a bad way to live when
no,
you're young and late teens and 20s, and good opportunities are going to arise for sure, and it's going to be
yeah, and
a lot of fun.
yeah, you learn a lot and you have a lot of fun, which was cool. So
Oh yeah, why outcomes, not ideas?
it's funny. I had this group that we were looking at doing some work with. And she asked, one of the ladies goes, it's 2 minutes left. And she goes, I'm just curious about this. Why that? And I said, well, you better bring over like a bottle of rum and then we'll, like,
Hmm.
we only have 2 minutes left. So I can't tell you all that. But um, short story is coming from that world of beverage, alcohol, and hospitality, getting into the likes of advertising, etc., digital, all that kind of good stuff. Um, and then having like our own, I guess agency. It all kind of came together because one, I realized that ideas are only get you so far. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And everyone has them. And as things were going, especially post 2020, I noticed a lot of things changing. So we had kind of a creative agency that was called Stories Inc. And it was
Stories
interesting
Inc.
and fun. And then what happened was the world took a hiatus. But a lot of things, as you know, I mean, changed during that time. And one of the things that changed was the um, game of speed and how fast people wanted things done. I mean, could you imagine, but like I'll have a Zoom meeting. They'd be like, no, you lazy bastard, like get to our office or you're not, like
Yeah, yeah,
so a lot of things changed in that time. What I started to realize was ideas were only getting us so far coming through brand and marketing and all that kind of good stuff. And I really was like, I don't think it's about ideas. It's not about ideas. And it's kind of like with music. I'll have something and I'll just put it in the phone or I'll write it down. I'm like, oh, it's kind of a cool line, right? And then I started to think like, okay, we don't want an agency. We have a group of expert partners, but we kind of like the Hollywood model where we can bring them into a certain film where and when needed. Um, but we need to do something that we do ourselves, and something that ultimately for me what I had to find in that discovery was like I don't want to have a massive team. I don't want to I don't like project managing. It's important and we can do it, but I like being a part of it, being in it, working directly with the folks. I like being the front man of the band. You know what I mean? I don't
yeah.
like managing the people behind it. So what I found was like if it's all about the end goal, the destination, the future state, how do we like get people there? And we started just kind of playing, and I started working with some really good, talented experts from my past of like, what is it that we're actually kind of shaping? And we started shaping this world that really was less about ideation and it was much more about, like we said, outcomes. Um, and then they just kind of like outcomes, not ideas. I'm like, that's fucking rad. Like maybe that's it.
Yep,
You know
maybe
what I
that's
mean?
it.
Maybe that's it. And so that was kind of how we arrived at shaping what again this world would be.
I think you're right. Everybody has ideas, but outcomes are much more difficult to come to life and draw a line in the sand and really make a difference.
Yeah, like I think making a claim, like that's the thing about, I mean, at the time when you were with, an agency and I got to work with some interesting ones, I mean, they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for an idea. That business and that model and that value, that perceived value changed. And so it was like, that's an old way of thinking that doesn't work anymore. At the same time, to your point, what I really liked about it was um, finding that balance between massive imagination and then like practicality. You know what I mean? Like Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about like clouds and dirt.
Right.
You've
Yeah.
got this aspirational sound of like a U2 where you feel like you're going to heaven, but then you got the grounded approach of like an Eminem. And it's kind of like, how do you find this like balance? And so for me, when we were shaping this with our team and the people that we work with, I was like, I want to put everything in a blender or a cocktail. I want to put like uh, the leadership aspect and the things I love from the likes of a Tony Robbins. I want to put the sports analogies and metaphors. I want to put the grit of and the practicality of blue collar. I want to put the throw a suit jacket on like a GQ, and I want to put some Motley Crue in there. Fuck, put some Red Bull in it, and I'm like
Yeah.
kind of
Mix it up. Mix
crafting.
it on up.
Yeah, let's see how it, roll it out. And so that's kind of what we did. Is I really wanted to get to a place where I felt like the value it comes in a lot of the energetic transformation. The value comes in like, hey, Brandon, like if this is the guy that you want to be, these are the things that we need to do. And it's not just about a to-do list. It's about we got to change the way we fucking think, man. And I really got into that. I've always been into that, but I wanted to blend that into this world, but still be able to deliver high value in terms of creativity and salesmanship and all that kind of stuff. So outcomes just seemed like the the name of the cocktail, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Can you walk me through? Because I think a lot of people, I mean, you mentioned that, the story or the idea had the perceived value of that, things had sort of shifted or things had changed. Are you
Yeah.
able to expand a little bit on that and
Mhm.
talk about why that changed or the change that you felt was going to be necessary to pivot and move into a different direction? Was there something there that you felt that maybe the market was missing, or a place that a place in the market that you felt really wasn't served to the best of its ability, that needed some tension on it?
Yeah, good question, man. Well, we had to make some decisions. What I was looking at is if we want to have a consultancy and we don't want a headcount of 10 people, if we, all these things, we had to start making decisions. So, what I'll use as an exercise is like, if we want to be that, we'd have to do this. It's a really great future casting kind of, right? So, like, if we want to have you know, the best birthday party for a kid, what would it have to, okay, she's thinking this and she feels that. She had the best time ever. Cool. What would have to happen for that to be true idea? So we use that a lot. What I started looking at was I got to make decisions, and it for me was like you got to get out of this generalized thing, and you got to become more specialized, but at the same time not like industry, but being industry agnostic. It's kind of it's kind of a tough thing to do, right? So what I looked at was like, we don't want to be in the product business because we like dealing with small to medium. And the reason why a lot of small to medium sized people fail at product because they don't have enough money. There's no
Right.
cash. Like, you need money, man. Like, that's the number one thing. How big's your bank account, right? So, the second thing is, I was like, I love working with so service businesses. Well, services is IP, right?
Mm.
Like services is all intellectual property crafted into offers that are buyable. And that really came through like this hospitality nature. I love, like, even back in the day, I used to love being like, hey, we got 5 customers and tonight we're going to roll. Like, I loved taking care of that and having fun. You know what I mean?
I felt,
So
yeah.
there was that side of it. There was this idea that, I wanted to work with people that were playing to win. I read this book by a guy named Roger Martin, a strategy book, and it was called Playing to Win. And that was kind of his whole premise is like, what are we playing for? And coming back from the sports thing, the grit, I was like, what drove me nuts is like, we want to be more creative. I'm like, fucking why?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why? And then, but we don't want to spend money. It's like, get out of here. Like, I don't want to even talk to people. Like, you weren't even clear on, they weren't clear on that. I also looked at understanding and coming from like my father's an entrepreneur, successful fellow in forestry. And being empathetic and understanding the pressure that goes through being a founder. You know what I mean? The stress, the highs, the lows, the up, the down, all that kind of good stuff. Like, so I really started to get like to write kind of like I'm taking notes here, kind of like this proposition to like who I could serve, and really wanted to do it from a heart centered place. They don't want bullshit. Cut the jargon. Like, they're not interested about the how. They're focused on the what. I pay you to do the how.
Yeah.
I'm focused on the what. So we took a lot of this stuff, and at the same time looked at the macro trends. I mean, the value of creativity has changed. I mean, Morgan Wallen has a new album. It's got 32 songs. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
film
You
is
put them
different. You
up.
don't go to movies. The value of selling like something creative, it's changed, man. You can't, things that you would sell an idea for 250 grand, you're not going to make that kind of money anymore. So there was a culmination of a lot of things that, to your point, went back to like, how do we facilitate a need? Like, where's the gap? And that came back to us living this idea of outcomes, not ideas, of making claims, drawing the line in the sand, like you mentioned, and going from this idea of, we can do like the restaurant that has sushi and pizza, and if you want strippers, we could probably get them. Like, get rid of that and go back to just being the best darn.
Whoa, I don't know. Sushi and pizza and strippers. That sounds like
Yeah,
a pretty cool lunch spot.
yeah. Well,
Yes,
you don't
me.
have that probably bad news for that, but for every other normal market, you know what I mean? It was like you're this. We can do that. It's like, no, just be known for what you're really good at. And so a lot of thinking went into arriving at some of that stuff.
Because I think there's a lot of, when you talk to a lot of founders and you're in that SMB, that small, medium sized business category, when you're talking about marketing, you're right? People get on the field and they're like, man, we gotta dig in our cleats and we gotta practice and we gotta show up to play. But it's like, well, what are we playing for? What is all this? We're gonna spend all this time training, but what is it what is our Stanley Cup? What is our, whatever it is, use that analogy. What is our championship belt? Like,
Yeah.
what is it that we are fighting for? So you're not just spinning your wheels aimlessly in one direction towards something that you may win, but it doesn't even really matter because you don't know once you've won if you've won.
Yeah, right. And then how much are you gonna risk? Like a thing also we looked at, like at my core, I love to sell stuff. You know what I mean? So I like creativity, but if you go into me and my lady's place, I don't have like Picasso on the wall. I'm not like that. I like the value of imagination, creativity, but it was more about, and the core of it all, Brandon, was like, fuck, man, these guys don't have systems. Like,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like they're looking at like, so there's so much time that's burnt. There's so much money that's wasted. They're so unsure about taking risks because there's nothing systematic. So what I kind of found through all this and working with some smart people was like, we need to create a proprietary method that's going to allow us to not take the client to school because nobody wants that, especially if they're moving and grooving. They're not paying for a university course on how to run their business. It's more about how do we take all the beauty that is them, their business, who they are as a personality, their hunger, their passion, and how do we create a system? And that's essentially what we did is we crafted this strategy to sales system that allows us to engage in different ways with our clients because marketing is one driver in this entire pie. And that's the whole thing. People get confused. Is it branding? Do I need to do brand or branding? Is it advertising? Is it market? It's just, it's like jargon. And we're like, okay, let's just simplify this, but let's also do it in a way that delivers back to what we talked about at the top of the call, which was like the outcome. And our whole outcome was like, how do we kill complexity, which is the enemy or the villain in the story of growth? The goal is simple, but simple's not easy. Well, how do you get simple? Well, you need a system, and then that's where our ta-da, our thing comes in. So,
Yeah, I mean, simple scales, right? Complexity fails, and I'll give you an example here. Uh, you had mentioned something earlier, and it brought me to this thought that I had about this insurance guy. Right, we're talking about services, and we're talking about friction, and you just really want to eliminate friction as somebody that is in your offering. And I had a guy that was reaching out to us for he wanted to take on our insurance, right? Company insurance, liability insurance, insurance for
he
all
was selling
that
you.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so he had, at this point, that was fine. He reached out a number of times. When he came, he had sent me over a proposal, right? And it was this beautiful, like we're talking about fluff, and you were talking about like we just need to get rid of this like fluff, just get to the point.
Yeah.
His proposal was like 6 or 7 pages long of like this is who we are. This is, the nice pictures on this thing on the proposal. I'm like, man, I don't care about any of that. But what happened was it required me to go in, and it was no online signature came through an email, and there was no way to just like click stuff quickly to get the information that I want. I don't really care about necessarily my insurance. I'm looking for ease, and it
Yes.
required me to print off that 6 page proposal and fill stuff out by hand and then scan it back over and email it. And I'm like, man, this is just get it something over in in DocuSign or whatever that was. But that my point being was it was a lot of fluff
Yeah.
that as a customer I did not care about. I care about the fact that my insurance is covered, and I care about the outcome, not necessarily the presence or how that's delivered. Like I just did not appreciate how much friction was in the way from getting him what he needed to getting me what we needed.
Well, I think, I mean, again, at the core of it all, I think that happens a lot where I don't know where it's this idea like more is better. You know
Right.
what I mean? If you look at, again, simplicity, I think Einstein said, like, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. In that case and scenario, until he understands your outcome, what the fuck's he even trying to sell you? What are you even doing? Like if you just stop if we just stop the game, we go time, what are you doing? Like and he's probably a great guy, but like maybe he's not. Who knows? But professionally, what are you doing? Like an expert doesn't do that. An expert has a really clear understanding and a process of one, clear on who their ideal client or customer is and how they serve them. And they make it really easy to buy. They're not trying to force you to sell something. And I think that's sometimes the challenge with a lot is if you distill it down on why that happens. Here's a picture of my aunt and my dog, and I love insurance, just stuff that you're like, and I like dogs, but what's that got to do with me? Is they're unclear to themselves on the unique value that they offer the marketplace.
That's a it's a really yeah, it's an elegant way to put it. Let me
Yeah,
ask
like
you,
they're unclear to themselves, so it's like good luck selling that shit.
how do people get clear in your opinion? Like you work with a lot of people that probably come to you and they're like, hey, we want to grow our business. We have this idea. This is who we want to be. This is how we see ourselves. But probably pretty quickly when you're working with them, you realize this person or this company or this organization is pretty scattered in understanding their brand and who they're who they're maybe who they're targeting, what they're after, who they want to be, where they're going. And imagine that there's a process that requires sitting down and going through a lot of that to just get very very clear on where are we going, what direction are we headed, how are we going to get there. What do you sit down and go over in those situations? What would you tell somebody if they really weren't clear, or what would that conversation be if you were to sit down with somebody at a table and just start extracting some of that fluff and really trying to help them navigate in the right direction?
Hmm. Well, I think in order to do that, one answer does it happen a lot? Yeah, like if people knew where they were going, they wouldn't seek outside expertise or support. But I think also too, we're human and we're weird, so you can't really be completely objective.
I think like to just to that point real quick. I think a lot of people they maybe have a good idea of where they're going, but they're also looking for some sort of validation.
Sure.
Because when you're talking about working with businesses and they don't have necessarily a lot of money to spend on marketing, they're they would if they could understand the outcome and they could understand have some sort of certainty as to the outcome that was going to be. If you said, hey, if you spend $1 with me, you're going to make $4, then I would say, cool, how many dollars can I possibly spend with you? I'll give you every last penny. But the
Interesting.
reality is you never really know that. Historical data can show you when, if you're tracking your leads, you're tracking sales through your marketing avenues that you're spending. That'll show you historically how things have gone. So there's some sort of certainty. But if you're new to the market and you're really trying to cast a new campaign or a new product line or a new business, and you're going into the future, you really don't know in a lot of ways how to spend the money, where to spend your time to get you where you need to go, because there's uncertainty. And so even if you have some direction, I think that there's a lot of value in having a professional sounding board of advisors, coaches, people that you hire to make sure that you're not completely insane.
Yeah. The diagnosis is you're fucked. Um, I think again, you asked a bunch there. I think that off the top, you have to have a process to determine if and how you can even be of help to somebody. So if somebody comes in and you say, "Hey, um, I'm looking to help grow my business." Okay, and I have these ideas. What's super important is that you have a process that you run people through, and that's kind of that expert framework of like one, before you diagnose, you have to determine fit. You got to be clear on who you want to help. If you're not clear, you're just opening the door and hopefully that. So you got to get clear on that. Who are these people? How do you help them? But I think what's important is you have to determine fit to see if human to human we're even going to connect, because a lot of people have unrealistic expectations. And it's important that you have a process that allows you to define and extract what's needed to even see if and how you can be of help. So to what you said earlier is there's always some sort of risk because there's no silver bullet and there's no certainty. If there was certainty at that level, you wouldn't need anyone. You would just like the challenge with a lot of founders and who we work with is they only know what they know and they know what they've done to date and they have data and all that. But if they're looking and saying, hey, listen, because we work from 20 million down to like 250 grand, the whole premise being playing to win. So you have to have that hunger, that fire in your belly. If you're like, oh, I kind of want to do it, I'm like, I'm not interested in talking to you. And we're huge on that. Like, not to be a dick, but to be like, we're not interested because it's competitive. I mean, you do your own thing, even to do all things right. Cool. Now you're just in the line of a cajillion other people who are, you know what I mean? Like doing
Yeah.
things right. So what's important is to have a process, but in that is to ask real questions, is to be like, where are we in 12 months? Like, I run into you at the pub, you're happy as shit. I go, what's happened in those 12 months? Like, there's that question. There's a book, Dan Sullivan. He's an interesting cat, but there's this future casting question where you just get people to look into a future state and then you do your own tone. You don't have to act all weird like you got a crystal ball. There's always this balance between aspiration and future and today. You don't want to act like a psycho, right? So it's like, but you get them talking and you get them talking, not revenue is 20 and now it's 25. Like, you get them talking about what that would look like. And then you ask questions around like, okay, I run to the pub and you're miserable. And I go, what's new? And you go, nothing. Cool. Well, what happened? People have a pretty good idea. So in that process, before you can ever actually help anyone or diagnose how to be of support, you have to be able to have the confidence, Brendan, to have those questions and be like fucking real with people. And be like, because it is real, it's their money, it's your time, and vice versa. So, like, if your gut is like, I don't see this, I tell a lot of the clients that we work with from a selling capacity, think of yourself as a talent scout. And if that customer you don't think is going to go to the show, like, don't be rude, but stop going to their games because you already know because you're the expert. And so there has to be a level of confidence that I think is exuded. Um, because once we get in and if we actually engage, it's a partnership. It's a real thing because it should be important to you and we should be allowed to talk real and we should be able to talk numbers and we should talk insecurities. But before we get to that place, one has to determine if they can even help and if they even want to help that human. So
Have you read 10x is easier than 2x?
yeah, I bits and pieces of just with Dan Sullivan. I haven't read. My lady read it though; she loved it.
Yeah, I mean the premise there being right is I mean there's a number of premises, but the idea is if you are 10xing your business,
Mm-hmm.
you're going after 10x goals, that's going to be you're going to be playing with much fewer people. The competition at that level
Yes.
is going to be much less because there's so many people that are looking to play probably where you are right now.
Yes.
And the competition there is fierce because those people are probably just as smart as you are. They're just as hungry as you are. They're working just as hard as you are. But there's so many more people that the competition at that level is going to be exponentially higher than if you are looking to do something much bigger and much greater and riskier and scarier
A hundred
because
percent.
there's less people that are willing to take that risk.
Yes.
And it sounds like those are really the people that you're after. Like we are going to work with people that want to be competitive, but at a very different level and are committed to working at a
Yeah,
different level.
100%, man. And they have to show it. Like that's you can't. We were talking to a client the other day, actually this morning. Sorry. And one of the offers that we have is called Partners in Crime. So it's a strategic partner program where we work with a client for 6 months. And really what it is kind of like a co-founder. So it's we get to work and we get real and whatever. And we were talking about one of the people that on his team, and I'm like, dude, like you can turn down heart, you can't turn it up. If they don't give a shit, it's like a little kid. If he's got too much energy, you can tone him down. But if he's just sitting there and he's just kind of looking at the wall, it's pretty hard to be like, So what's interesting about it with all this kind of stuff is you have to find who fits you. Like and we talk about off the top of the call investing in ourselves, and I'm working with a coach that used to work, um, someone used to work for Meta. And when we were talking about, I wanted to pick her brain because she did all advertising and machine learning, and she's been on the AI front for a long time. She worked for Meta for like 12 years. And so we're reviewing some of the creative, and she goes, "Why are you acting?" And we're in this call, and I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I'm just going to be like, tell you what it is. Like, Ryan, you have a personality that people are either going to love you or they're going to hate you. And that's the way God made you." You know what I mean? It's like, and that really landed with me, and I felt like that came from source, or call it whatever you want. I don't get caught up in the names, but it came through her and it really landed. And the reason I share that is because you've got to find who you want to be of help to. And that means that on an energetic level, you have to be able to connect with those human beings. And if you don't connect with those human beings, chances of you actually being able to help them, as well as, it's kind of like, I love you, but I don't love. Like, you probably should have married someone else or date. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like, I love you, but I don't love you as much as it seems like he loves you. Um, is you've got to find that fit, and it's really hard for people to find fit and even get into diagnosing and helping and talking about risk if we're unsure of like who we want to be and how we want to show up. So again, I think all this stuff starts with self. I think to the 10x rule is like, yeah, if you want to play big, that shit starts today. Like, what do you think Edmonton's talking about today?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Right, like and so what happens in a lot of the work that we do, dude, is there's a lot of that in there. Like, show me that you want it, but say that, and communicate that through your process and how you, and don't say that. You know what I mean? Like, say that, but don't say, and then trust, engage. Like, we want to be number one. Cool. Why? And what is number one? I want to do $1 million. Awesome. Why? I want to double the business. Cool. Why? Like, when we get into this work, it's what we get into, a lot of these stories that want, like, well, my dad said I should make $1 million. What does your dad know about XYZ? Nothing. Okay, so you're trying to prove to your dad that you're good at what you do, or are you trying to run, you know what I mean? Like, that shit happens really quick in the stuff that we do, because if we don't understand that they are actually connected to this outcome, it's really hard to do the things that we do with them.
Is it pretty clear when you sit down and talk to somebody, how quickly do you know, and can you feel or understand that somebody is playing small, or somebody is really playing to win at the next level? How quickly can you determine that?
That's a good question. Well, from a tangible perspective, we have a part of our process which is called under the hood, where we look at financial clarity, and we get into like cost management and numbers. If somebody doesn't know their numbers, that's okay. But when they're talking $1 billion too, I invested 20x. Ian's just like, stop using it. Like, what do you, just show me your P&L, show me your revenue model, like, and it gets real quick. And again, we get to that. So if they're unable to go there, or like, hey, I want to get in shape, step on the scale, I don't want to, we're like, we're not going to help you. That's a tangible thing. So you can attach like numbers and performance to that, because that's not just rah, that's like real. The intangible is on an energetic level, buddy. You have
Mm.
to feel that. Like, I don't think it's like a Rick Rubin. I think, he could work with probably a cajillion artists.
He
Why
has
does he
worked with
select?
yeah, he's worked with some amazing artists, man.
But he's selective, like System of a Down to Jay-Z. Like, those are two different bands, like two different artists. So you there have my belief is, and this is a human thing, not a professional thing, is like, if we're unable to be clear to ourselves and who we are and how we want to show up, it's really hard to navigate and read the room of other people. And from a professional lens, it makes it really tough to feel those things on an energetic level and ask the questions. Like, and being direct, like, I will challenge things sometimes just to get a reaction, to
Mm.
see. And if I feel like they're unable to have those conversations early, fuck, man. It's gonna be like, I don't know, like, Because I'm
But
going to
you
say
don't
something, or
know.
we're going to say something, we're going to say it, and you're going to be stuck in your head for 2 weeks. And sometimes you find people like that. So I think you have to show up in your truest form, but you as the expert have to be able to gauge that. Because what we do is intellectual. It's not a thing. It's not like cool, and you need coffee cups, and there's the cups, and it's like in order for this thing to work, if the role of me, if you're the actor, if you are Al Pacino, I'm Scorsese. I'm working behind with you, and we're arriving at this character and how it's going to be portrayed in Goodfellas or whatever, right? So we're in it, but we both have to commit energetically. We both have to be willing to try. The script is the system we're playing off of, but we're going to fuck with it and we're going to do that. And if I feel like we're not able to do that off the get go, I just will either call it out and say I don't think this is going to work because of X, or I'll just be like, it was a pleasure to meet you, and we'll take a look and we'll see if we can help you. And usually it'll just be like, hey, we thought about it, not so much. So again, that's just being able to read things, and also having process to kind of manage that stuff.
What do most of your customers that come to you and they call you up and they say, "Man, we have a problem here we want to solve." What is that problem? When people come to you and they are looking to solve something, some sort of pain in their business or their life, or they're looking to grow or whatever that is, where do they get stuck? And where do they come to you? At what point in their journey do they come to you and they say, "Man, we're stuck. We need help. We need to take it here. How can you help?" What is that point? Like when people come and sit down with you and you sit around the table for that first time and you start whiteboarding some stuff out, where are they in their journey, and what are most of them really trying to uncover and start discovering?
Well, it always goes. It's the symptoms. So usually I mean, it's all money. Like for what we do
A
our
lot of it
clients,
comes down to
it's like
money. Yeah.
it comes back to money. Like they're like, we're not making what we used to make, or we're spending too much, or we're trying to grow and we got a buttload, but we don't want to spend on the wrong shit. Or like it's always, you know what I mean, for the people that we work with. Because again, our thing is like, and that's sometimes the creative thing, those worlds where they're like, they don't want to talk about money.
Yeah.
Well, you paid in candy canes, kid, or how do you get paid? Like money, right? Okay, well, maybe we should talk about it. So that comes up a lot in the symptoms of it. And really, when it comes to growth, it's really how much is it going to take? Like, what's it going to take to grow? Like, we're kind of here and we've hit this point where we know that, like, we need help. Like, they don't know exactly where, but they know they need help on this growth trajectory. So that's kind of where, and they're always kind of like it's again. And sometimes what's funny is it's usually like it's revenue, it's not profit. So our whole premise is like growth to maximize profit. You hear that like revenue for vanity,
Profit
profit
for
for
sanity.
sanity idea.
Yeah.
So right, it's like so sometimes even numbers you can tell in language like it's interchangeable. You can tell how people talk on what they know, but it comes through that. And then to your point, like we don't whiteboard any, like the first thing we do is like the fit thing. Like we don't start solving anything um, until we go through that first conversation. If that conversation is awesome, we have a second conversation ASAP. And sometimes if they're really they'll happen within 24 hours. And what we do is we have a process. It's called the outcomes conversation, and we map out with our whiteboard and our whole thing that we've got what it would mean against the measurable, what it would mean, how you would rate yourself out of 10 right now, currently, your current situation, what the goal that, the outcome you want to hit. And then we get to that future state. So before we ever help anybody or give a single piece of advice, we look at like, is this even something that's solvable? Because until monies are exchanged, we don't give anything. There's not nothing, zero, because that's where ultimately we actually help people. And if I said to you, Brandon, and you're looking at working on your brand or whatever, and I looked and I said, well, your room's dark lit. I'd wear a white dress shirt, not a black. It would work with the lighting. Okay, but if we frame it in a way where I understand what really matters and you're thinking about how to create it, then we can charge for that. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
a lot of people that are in the service business, and I like your shirt, so I'm not making fun of
You know,
you.
it was like you picking on my shirt, and I
Yeah,
did say right at the very beginning, I'm like, I just came from a meeting. I actually like I don't
I know, man.
I'm
I
actually
know.
one of the first things
I'm
I
such a
said, right?
prick.
You gotta pick on me like that.
Is
God
a
damn it.
bully. I'm really short. That's why I'm
Bullying
so.
me here. No,
Um,
I love you.
is is it only matters when it matters when they're vested. So if you look at a film, the idea of that bad acting, well, did the line change? Did they not put money in production? No, they did all those things. They weren't committed to the act. It's the same thing here. So a big part of it is like until we're actually engaged and we've looked at what success looks like, we're clear on the outcomes, we're clear on the measurable. This is not like a we give me a quarter, I tell you a fortune.
You know, it was I love the idea and the saying that the transformation happens at the transaction.
Yeah,
What I mean by that is I know if I'm going to be spending great money on a personal trainer, if I'm putting money up to invest in something,
yeah,
real money,
yeah,
I know that I'm going to run as fast as I can to get an ROI on that.
one hundred
But
percent.
if you're kind of dicking around a little bit and you're kind of playing with some of the free stuff and some of the advice, chances are like because you're not that invested, you're not going to get the outcomes that you're hoping for because you're not doing what somebody that is really invested in making that change would do. The
Yes,
transformation happens at
one
the
hundred percent.
transaction.
And we've all done that, right? We've all been
Oh,
like,
sure.
we've all, like and I think that's one of the things that for anyone that's listening to, what you do and what it sounds like you're building, through this, which is really exciting, by the way, and cool. It makes a lot of sense. Is like, just ask the question that you want to ask in the style and tone that you want to ask it. So if someone says, if you go, hey, right, my business is $1 million a year and I want it to be 2 million, I'm like, cool. One of the things that we do is we look at the pocket of investment and we go, I'm not telling you like, I want to understand your thinking because the thinking doesn't have anything to do with the dollars and cents. The thinking has to understand how you look at what we talked about, committing to things. So if you think that a gap of $1 million, a doubling of your business, you're going to pay somebody 5 grand. Like, think about that. I got a brand new 2026 truck and it's 9 grand. You'd be like, who owns it?
Yeah.
Because it's stolen, right? Like, the gig is up. What a lot of people don't realize is that value and how value is positioned has a real reflection on pricing because when I realize that it's $1 million gap and I understand the importance of what you're trying to do to build your personal brand, when I make the recommendation of white shirt, that shit fucking lands, man, because it matters. And it's these little things, these nuances that make the difference. It's not, if you're doing $1 million, you're not sleeping until 10:30 in the morning. And you know what I mean? Like you're doing stuff. But again, it's just, I don't know, man. Like, apply a little bit more common sense to the conversation.
What do people get wrong about brand?
Well,
What do people understand? Like you come in, I mean, people generally have an understanding. You said there's the difference between brand and branding and
mm,
marketing and it's sort of a fine line for a lot of people. To me, I have an understanding of in my mind what I believe that to be.
yeah,
But in your experience, what is it that people get wrong about brand? Is it a thought that hey, if we put our name on a t-shirt or a coffee mug, people are going to recognize us? Is it a volume thing? Is it a storytelling thing? Is it just we're not doing enough to actually make a brand? What do people typically get wrong about brand? Is it something as simple as your colors are fucked. They don't represent what you stand for. Your logo sucks. What is it that people get wrong?
I think it depends on who you're talking to, and that's the challenge with a lot of this artsy fartsy stuff, right? If you go like, "What's orange juice?" and someone gives you like cranberry juice, you're not like it's orange. You're like, it's not. You know,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
know nothing about juice. I know this isn't it. Is a couple things. One, a lot of people that are fitting probably your audience, people we work with, is they want to be like the bigs, but they don't understand how the bigs make the music. So they want to be the bigs, but then they also go, yeah, but I'm also the best looking guy in the pub. It's like, yeah, but you're in like a town of 1,000. Like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Like the thing doesn't matter. So they're unclear on actually what goes into it conceptually. Um, they can't put a tangible value on it because there's a guy named Marty Newmeyer, and he did a lot of creative works with Apple back in the day. And his definition is that a brand is, again, it's a gut feeling of a product, a service,
Mm.
or a company. So how do you measure that? It's pretty impossible to do. It's done at higher levels, but it's hard to do, right? They'll take into like, it's not like EBITDA or something, it's actually tough to like, but it matters. What the way that we distill it down, Brand, is looking at it that the brand is what the human being, your ideal customer or client, the consumer, however you fit it for what you're in a B2B or B2C business, is it's the way that they experience the value that you create in their lives. So let me explain. It's how one touch, sees, feels, tastes, experience. It's a human thing. You can touch it, you can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it, right? But the brand, and where a lot of people get things confused, is the brand is just the manifestation of that. The brand is actually the value that's created on a strategic level that is then delivered through something that is tangible, which is what we call a brand. So when people talk about colors and all that kind of good stuff, if you think about a big brand like Nike sells this idea of like greatness. I don't know the exact words, but the value that's created, the way that if you looked at 10 people, for some reason, we see ourselves as better than the athlete in us. This idea of pursuit of like greatness through sport. Now, I don't know what the words are, but you get the drift, right? And
Yeah.
no one would say Nike, great cleaning company. Like, no one would say that, right? How the brand has been brought to life is a summation through how they articulate that through these visuals, etc. Right? Corona. Corona sells like find your beach is about this idea of like relaxation and you've earned it. They use a literal beach as the thing, but Corona's not in the beer business like Nike isn't in the shoe business. So long-winded, the way that we summarize it so that people don't get confused, because that feels like we're going to school, is we say replace brand with reputation. And now tell me if that matters. Well, fuck yeah, it matters. It's everything. Cool. Well, if we could enhance and grow it, do you think that would create value for your business? Absolutely. Awesome. So just don't call it that. Call it think your reputation. People call it brand. And when we reframe it like that, it's much more grounded. And I kid is these voices and weird shit I do, but it's um it's like if your business sucks, it doesn't matter how like we did sexy photography, no one cares. You don't create any value in the market. You don't. There's nothing meaningfully different about you know what I mean? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So when we have we have a brand. I'm like, okay, well, if you have a brand, how come you charge less than, you know what I mean? Like brand should create pricing power. Brand should allow one to do certain things others can't do. So the whole brand thing is interesting, but we really go back to, again, the reputation stuff.
Yeah. I think I love how you mentioned Nike. There's a have you seen the Nike commercial with Willem Dafoe? I don't know if you've seen
Yeah, he's
if
great.
you've seen that one,
No.
but it was just this. When I watched that, it made me want to buy, definitely some new shoes and just kind of like go a little insane. But he went in and it was this talk of like I'm maniacal. I'm, there's this, this athlete tension. I'm fucking crazy. Everybody around me sees it. And like, and then it makes you feel as if once you buy a pair of Nike shoes or shorts, like you're gonna feel that maniacal energy, that insane just drive to succeed and be the best on the field, the best on the court, run faster. Man, it's it yeah. If you get a chance, check it out. It's
Check
one of
it,
my
yeah,
yeah, it's one of my
definitely.
one of my favorite
He's great.
commercials out there. Check it out on YouTube if you get a chance.
The perspective is like where things are won. And so I think if you look at like the brands have a perspective, they see the world through a certain lens. So what's challenging is, but that's not just words and ideas, that's value. If you look at a deeper rooted, if the value you create is X, we talked about that unique value off the top, that's at the core. So Corona talks a lot about this idea of finding your beach. Let's say it's like relaxing. Like their unique value to the market on a conceptual level is that people should like embrace those moments that you deserve. Let's just say that's the working idea. Okay.
Mm.
The proposition, though, has to be what the customer buys. And that's the difference between where people get confused is like their value proposition sucks because it's too their value proposition is different than the unique value. The unique value is at the core, it's the heart, it's the DNA. The proposition has to be to facilitate and help provide a solution to a problem. So when they say find your beach, which then usually it all correlates into like a tagline, etc., what they're saying to you is like, here's our proposition. For exchange of your dollar, you get to relax and appreciate that you're doing pretty darn good. Right. So when when we get into this work, it becomes very like, I don't know, man. It's like it's energetic, it's spiritual. It's without trying to get too into that stuff, it becomes like, why does that commercial land? Because on an energetic frequency level, it lands with a specific type of human being. That is like energy. That's not just colors. Maybe those things reinforce it, but I think like really great brands, really great leaders, really great people that are in this state of creation and constantly growing, they're tapped into the energetics of the world, you know?
Yeah, it's a delicate balance between art and science and
Yes.
spirituality. And I
Yes.
think at its level, and there's stuff that can be measured that's very black and white, but I really believe that a lot of magic happens in the gray.
100%. Like how do you measure cool? Well, cool is like find your cool. We use that a lot, right? And cool's unique. So find your cool. Like what's your cool? I don't know. Doesn't
The
mean you have to.
greasers, though, the white T-shirt and the deck of darts rolled up in the
Yeah,
sleeves, and
yeah.
the
James,
leather
James.
jackets, and yeah.
So it's fine that, right? So again, but I think we know a lot more. What we also created was like, we're not going to outsmart you or take you to school. What we're going to do is we're going to create a framework that allows the beauty of your experience, the beauty of your personality, the beauty of your heart, the beauty of your fire. And we're going to be able to extract that into something because that's sometimes the biggest challenge is that we can't see the things ourselves we need and so it's not just an opinion like you're cool, okay, thanks, I'm cool. Like no, it's like take that and apply it to something that's going to create insane value to help one grow and ultimately achieve the outcome. So that's how all this shit is kind of interwebbed in this story.
Can I ask you, when you were developing outcomes, not ideas, and back to an earlier part of our conversation,
Mhm.
I would like to get a sense
Mhm.
of the process that you went through when you were developing the firm, the company that you have, because you had mentioned, you mentioned here, find your cool, but you'd all and imagine you're like, we want to throw in a little motley crew, we want to throw in some nice bourbon. We want to throw in a little Nickelback. We want to throw in, this and that, and then kind of mix it all together. And like, this is who we want to be.
Yeah.
How does that process start? How does that transformation
Dude,
start bringing that together?
it's like that's the toughest part. Like to speak to the way I am today, which even when I listen to myself talk, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. I'm having like a side conversation with myself, listening to what
That's all right. That's like
it,
that's what these side conversations are about, because
it's like,
these questions are yeah, hopefully they'll make you think about
yeah.
stuff.
Well, dude, it was a tough grind. Like there was a lot of times where even coming back from where I was in my career and going into identity and ego and all this kind of stuff, it was tough, man. Why we evolved to what we're doing now is because I couldn't sell what we were doing before.
Mhm.
Model was dead. So we were making music that was no longer relevant. So that's tough, man. And I had a really hard time because a big part of being a creative minded dude is I thoroughly get to enjoy the things I do, and I'm not building ditches. I'm not, when you can't do what you want to do and you believe that you're talented, but then you're not putting any pucks in the net, it's a fucking mind crazy thing. And it led to a lot of things that bad behavior. Like to me, like I had to really work in with some people, like, and I would numb and I would distract. So I would numb, and for me numbing was like alcohol. Like I'd never had I can consume like a mother, but I've never had a like, okay, the guy's on a 5 day, like, no.
Yeah.
But I would play the character of like, it's okay, I'm gonna figure it out. I would go back to what I knew. And then what I realized was like because I write a lot, I was so clear to myself on what I was trying to I was so clear on how do you say it? I knew what I didn't want to be anymore.
Mhm.
But and Hormozy talks a lot about that. But then you're in this gap of like you're not who you used to be, and you're aware to it, but you're not in the ballpark of the new thing. So you're in
Yeah.
this weird
The,
fucking
the middle ground, right? The
you're in
awkward,
this
the awkward
field by
teenage middle
yourself,
ground.
you know? And I'm there, man, and I'm like, and so to answer your question, I had to get honest with who and how I wanted to show up as a human being. I had to look at the parts of me that no longer serve. I had to put accountability measures in place, and I had to enroll experts. Consulting, there's very few people that actually make a lot of money doing it. It's kind of like coaching. I think the average coaching thing is they make like 65 grand a year. They coach other people how to coach stuff that don't make no money. It sucks, but it's the truth. Like, so I'm like, I gotta hire smart people. I gotta hire people, and I gotta show what I got, and I gotta get it beat up. Like, here's what I think, and they're like, change that. That sucks. This like, give me raw goods. So to arrive at how it came through, it's again like any kind of creative endeavor. It's not linear, man. It's like a. But what I kept going back to is like, who are the humans that I want to serve? I want to serve these boys and girls that are like passionate beyond belief, and they're a little crazy. They don't fit in like, you know, they're the kind of people that if something sucks, they flip the desk. Those are my people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I like that.
We
I don't
want the
like
we want the misfits. We
yeah,
want the anger. We want the fired up. We
the
want the
passionate, the one
passion.
that will just speak their mind, the one that will emotionally connect to what they want to a point where it moves them that they're almost crying. Like we want the people that are playing for not just them, but their family and the people they employ in their families. Those are our fuckers in our locker room. That's our motley crew. The people that wear ties and do nothing and have meetings to get drunk at the Christmas party and say they can do it, fuck you. Not interested in you. The people that are emotionally inspired by helping and creating change, those are, and so I kept going back to that. Like it's kind of like creating. We're doing a lot with writing and music right now. It's a feeling that like I want you to feel this way. I don't know how to articulate that yet through the music and through the vocals and through the melody and through the story. And that's really now looking back, I can look and watch the tape and be like, here's the last 2.5 years. Um, but it took a long time, Brian, to like to get there, but I will say that I didn't fucking stop. And I kept working and I kept doing stuff, but I didn't quit. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and asking smarter people. And the more that we did that, the more I started to live and embody the things that I wanted to attract and help others with, the simpler it got. Like, you know what I mean? You just start cutting the fat, cut the fat, cut the fat, cut the fat, cut the fat. And so there's no like, oh, we did a 2 week program, we did yoga, we meditated, and we came up with outcomes and ideas. Like, no, dude, we fucking cried, we drank too much, we like, I went to places, man, where I couldn't even show up around my friends and events because I couldn't be me.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to be me. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It sounds weird talking about it, but I'm like, I feel like such a goof. Like, and I think some people I knew were like, what happened to Ryan? Like, he used to be this guy, and now he's like eating a condiment sandwich in the corner. You know what I mean? I just felt like such a. But that's the part I think of this whole growth thing that I lived, and I'm thankful for that because I think I had to do that to be where we're at, and I'm sure, dude, we'll go through it again. So,
man, you will, right? The storm will come, so you got to learn to fucking sail.
yeah, it's like get kicked in the nuts, and then you're like, okay, this hurts, but I know that I'm getting kicked in the nuts. So, come
Hell
on.
yeah, man. Well, I think I've seen you grinding. I've known you grinding, growing, changing, evolving. It's been beautiful to watch, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Love it.
Appreciate you.
Where can these misfits, these
Psychos,
fiery
psychopaths.
psychopaths that are just looking for change and looking for growth and buy in and want to be pro, where can these people find you?
Well, go to the website, www.outcomesnotideas.com. That's where you can find all the information. Link, Facebook, all that, Ryan Anthony, LinkedIn, Ryan Anthony. Take a look there. And that's probably where we'll be able to connect. And the goal is that when they read even the website or even more stuff that we share, same way you're doing, doubling down on building your own brand, doing more to tell stories, doing things like we're doing today, right? Is like you'll get a good idea. Like some people listen to this guy, that guy's a prick. I'm not working. It's like, cool, that's okay too. And then maybe some people like, I can't finally someone that talks like me. You know, the people on the ladder that are interested, check out our stuff. And the goal is that, you know, the sale and how we work together, it starts, if we're to engage, you're going to get a good idea who we are. I just got barked at by a client the other day because my response was not, you know, and I looked at it and I was like, man, I sound like a dick. So I hit her back. I said, sorry, I didn't finish off the thing. But she goes, yeah, no, it's okay. I just want to call it out. I'm like, I'm cool. I like that. You know what I mean? That to me is real. There's no as per in there. So if that fits your vibe, if some of the whatever we talked about today lands, give us a look, and always open to having conversation with those people with big hearts. So
your vibe will attract your tribe. That's my friend. You got it. Awesome. For all you listeners that are out there and still with us, it's been awesome having you here today. Appreciate you. Until next time, stay blessed. Rock and roll.
Adios. Thanks, Brian.
Cheers.